as a person with a function on contractual terms with their organizers, I will have to remind everybody of the time limits, but thank you, Mr. Ivanov, for this most interesting contribution. In this forum and in other big discussions, people talk a lot about the multipolar world that we're going to have in the future, and everybody talks about it as a fait accompli, as something that will happen in every case. But is that so? Mr. Cutchins, would the world of 2020 indeed be multipolar? Maybe it will be the other way around. Maybe the United States will recover from its difficult times, and as Mr. Obama, or rather Mr. George Bush before him said, the United States will continue as the main dominating center of the world. What do you think?
Thanks, Alexei, for that provocative question. I do fundamentally believe that the world is on a path to becoming multipolar. I think the prognostications made by Jim O'Neill and Goldman Sachs 7 years ago in the BRICS report are essentially on track. I think most likely, I expect we'll be looking at a world in several decades in which you have a much larger China economically and politically, militarily, much more powerful India, and the United States is not going to go away, and you're going to have I believe you're going to have a more united Europe than you see today, despite the current consternation over the ebb right now in the European unification project. So I do believe that, and that's going to be the challenge for us and our children's generation to develop the appropriate institutions to manage that. Now, when I look at Russia's position, I want to make just 2 points. One about Russia and one more broadly about Eurasia and globalization. Russia's really seems to me, a unique historical moment. I would argue in its 1,000-year history. Let's imagine that we were gathering at the end of the 14th century for a meeting like this in, let's say, Constantinople. And there was, the audience was asked to vote on who they thought would be the dominant country in Eurasia in 500 years, 600 years. I don't know that the Principality of Moscow at that time would have gotten a lot of votes from the crowd. So the development of Russia historically is quite extraordinary, remarkable. Now, and that speaks a lot to the dynamism of the Russian people and the political and economic system of that time. But there's another component to it, another side to it, in that Russia was expanding at a time in an international context in which other regional entities, empires were declining, be it Chinese, be it Indian, Persian, Ottoman, a Europe that was fairly disunited. So the challenge Russia has to maintain its position in a multipolar world is going to be, I think, that much more challenging than it has been in the past. Now, the larger point I want to make is one of the most important aspects I see going on in globalization today, and it relates to this changing balance of power in the world. You know, my dear friend Dmitry Trenin wrote an excellent book 8 years ago called "The End of Eurasia," in which I still use the book, Dmitry, in teaching graduate courses back at Johns Hopkins University in Washington, D.C. And the argument was essentially that a model in which Russia's foreign policy and its domestic organization were modeled to dominate Eurasia was one that was likely not to be fruitful or useful. But I would argue, rather than there being the end of Eurasia, there's really the beginning of Eurasia right now. And this is the point I want to make. And it began with the end of the Cold War, breaking down the Berlin Wall. It began with the opening of borders further east. And it's being affected now by the rapid development of particularly the Chinese and the Indian economies and other economies. And what's happening to Eurasia is actually, it's getting reconnected. It's getting reconnected east and west. It's getting reconnected north and south. And this is one of the most fundamental things going on from a standpoint of economic development as well as security challenges we face. Now, if you were to go up at a level of 8 miles high and take a satellite shot of, and now unclassified U.S. Department of Defense satellite images, you can see this. They'll indicate all communications activities that were taking place on a day back in 1999. What you'll see in this map, and I'm sorry I don't have it with me here today, is all across the northern hemisphere. It's all filled in with black dots, except this one spot, which is sort of Central Eurasia. Afghanistan, Tajikistan would be in the center of that. And that's representative of the lack of human activity there. Now, 10 years later, that gap is starting to get closed. It's being closed by the demands of goods, people, services, money, crossing borders, east to west, north to south again. What is important for the United States in particular right now is the fact we're located in 2 wars in this area. One of them obviously in Afghanistan, where we're seriously challenged right now. If Afghanistan is kind of like a cork in the bottle of this reconnection of Eurasia. As long as Afghanistan remains unstable, then the development of transit corridors from Hamburg to Hanoi, Mumbai to Moscow, Beijing to Berlin, etc., those are going to be impeded. And as long as those are impeded from happening sooner rather than later, then the security in that region is going to suffer as well. And economic development is going to suffer. All of us have a huge interest in seeing that this reconnection of Eurasia happen sooner rather than later. And again, particularly the United States, given the fact we have such an investment in blood and treasure right now. What's heartening to me to see, and this is in the context of the improving U.S.-Russia relationship, is that I see signs that we're now looking at this region, Afghanistan, Central Asia, other areas in what was sort of known as the post-Soviet space, in somewhat of a less zero-sum framework. And I hope that's a development that continues in months and years ahead. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kachins. And
thank you very much, Mr. Kachins. I want to address the same question to Mr. Hormats. Mr. Hormats, you must be equally well informed in your sphere as Mr. Ivanov is in the Russian scene. Would you say that 10 years from now Russia will be as much of a global player as it is today, or as much as a global player as the United States, or will the United States be back as #1?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this very excellent conference. And I want to say that I very much agree with Mr. Ivanov's point. His fundamental point is Russia doesn't have to choose between the West and the East. It has a lot of options, in part because of its geographical position, and in part because I think Russia's global role is expanding at a very rapid rate. Russia is now a key part of the Group of 20. It played a very important role in resolving the international financial crisis. Russia works closely with other countries, BRIC countries and other countries in the World Bank and the IMF. We hope Russia will be able to join the WTO, and we look forward to working with Russia in the WTO. There's a lot of collaboration on security and political issues in Central Asia and many other parts of the world. I think Russia, like America is neither an Atlantic country or a Pacific country. It's both, and it's both. Russia can be a European country and an Asian country in terms of its connections, and it can benefit from both. So I also would like to say that I see this multipolar world in somewhat different terms. It will be multipolar, but it will also be a multi-partner world. The opportunity for both Russia and the United States is to have partnerships on different issues with different countries. There won't be a G2, as people talk about, US and China, but for many issues on the global scene, the the U.S. and Russia will be working together. I'm a Sherpa for the planning of the G8 summits. We work very closely with the Russian Sherpas on a lot of elements of planning for those summits. So there's an opportunity for a series of partnerships. The second broad point I'd make is that if you look around the world, it's important not to look just at the growth of countries in quantitative terms. It's important to look also at qualitative terms. And Mr. Ivanov made a very interesting point, and that is, and others have made it too, and that is, it's not just the amount of GDP of another country, it's the potential for interaction among Russian companies and American companies, and Russian companies and European companies and others as well. What's very interesting, you go back to the founder of this great city, Peter the Great. There were ships being built in China and Japan at that point. He chose to go to England and to Holland. Why did he choose to do that? Not that their ships were necessarily better, although they were quite good, but because there was an opportunity for interaction. And what we see today, if you look at students who were studying yesterday, our ambassador and I met with a number of entrepreneurs here. It's the interaction between Russian and American institutions of higher learning, Russian and American universities. Look at the companies that are investing in Russia in research and development. Many of them are American companies or European companies. There's a history of collaboration, of interaction. Increasingly, there's a history of cross-border innovation between Russian and American companies and Russian and European companies. We welcome that. We also don't feel threatened and shouldn't feel threatened if the same kind of collaboration takes place with Chinese universities or Japanese universities or Korean universities. The point is that there should be a great many options for Russian companies, and we should welcome them. If the cure for cancer comes from collaboration between a Russian company and a Korean company, it still benefits all of us. If the new type of technology that enables us to reduce dramatically dependence on energy, a new type of battery, for instance, is developed between a Russian company and a British company, that's a positive thing for the world. So we really have to look, I think, at the world less in terms of the geographics of multipolarity and more in terms of this multi-partnership world that I'm describing. If you look at Russia also in geopolitical, geostrategic terms, you look at the relationship with Western Europe. And I also want to make the point that while I think the East is rising, there's no question about it, I don't think it also stands to reason that the West is declining. I think if you look at patents, if you look at new products, new innovations, a lot is going on in Western Europe. A lot is going on in the United States. We should be happy that the East is rising. It's new markets for our products. It's new companies to trade with. It's new potential areas for investment. We should welcome that. That's good for the world, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're declining or deteriorating. And I think the key from the point of view of when you look at Russia is going to experience demographic challenges to its far east. There's security issues to its south. The border with the West is the most stable of borders. There's no security threat. There's no demographic concern. This is a stable border built up by a series of partnerships, a series of cooperative arrangements over the course of several decades. So I think that while it is important to acknowledge that the East is rising, and that's a great thing for all of us, it also it should not be assumed that the West is going to decline. And in fact, I think for the next 10, 15, 20 years, on investment issues, on innovation issues, on trade issues, there are going to be enormous opportunities for Russia and the United States, Russia and Western Europe. And Russia is in a unique position to take advantage of opportunities on both sides. And I think we welcome that. And I think the Russian government sees it very much that way. And I think Mr. Ivanov's statement was a very eloquent underscoring of that very point.
Thank you very much for this truly optimistic speech.